I think it's time to give a little bit more thought and reflection on Shadowrun so far. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Back from the family trip over the weekend, recovered for the most part, but still not quite all together, and I'd originally planned to go into more of the more lore and everything, maybe start digging into each of the individual megacorporations, but I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to do a bit of a retrospective, looking back at everything we've covered so far, the rules and all these other things, and really go over what it is about this setting in this game that I really enjoy and what I don't like, and perhaps maybe some of you will agree. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there to hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. And if you've already listed yourself on such a legendary roster of incredible runners such as that, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now, let's go ahead and talk more about Shadowrun here, shall we? So, the biggest thing that we've covered so far, especially rules-wise, that just was not at all enjoyable, was enchanting. That entire skill group with creating preparations, enchanting foci, and disenchanting things, and reagents, and all those different rules. It just was an absolutely awful noob trap. This is a skill group that is definitely meant for NPCs, or if you're a later game player, a prime runner, with plenty of karma to burn and you've already gotten a bunch of essential skills and everything together and you've already initiated to higher levels of magic, then you could probably get away with doing some enchanting and all of that stuff, making preparations and the like. But even then, you're going to have some difficulty controlling it, and if this is going to be something your players are getting into, if you're the GM for such a game, consider reworking it somewhat so that way it's not quite so painful and hard on your players. Make it so that they have better control over the relative potency of the items that they're trying to make, particularly where foci are concerned. But other than that, though, after getting back into the lore aspect of everything, going over everything with the Shiawase decision and extraterritoriality, that just really got me going. It was, well, history major and whatnot, just taking a look at everything with that, all those binding legal decisions and the way the U.S. court system works based off of precedent and the like, and then making the Shiawase decision, recognizing megacorporations having extraterritoriality where they get to enforce their own rules and laws. I mean, that's insane. That's insane for so many reasons, but you can see it happening based off of the timeline of history, with everything happening with the food shortages, the riots, the different environmental disasters happening, like the Sox over near Germany, the awakening of different great dragons, like the, oh goodness, I wish my German pronunciations were better, Firewing, basically that dragon that woke up and went on a rampage, and then you have Lofwyr, and then Ryumyo, and I believe it's the Great Ghost Dragon. All of these different magical happenings and awakenings going on. You can see how just a crazy world like this would end up in a very weird, precarious situation. But even still, the Shiawase decision and extraterritoriality, that's almost a legal, at least from a very legalistic, historical point of view, that's tantamount to a nation giving up their sovereignty. And they're ceding territory to another entity. They're ceding their monopoly on violence. I mean, that's two major points for considering a nation to be a failed state. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. Because now, I mean, think about what that means. They've lost the monopoly on violence, meaning they've lost their ability to enforce laws, and they're publicly, legally, in a very binding fashion, giving up their ability to enforce laws to other corporations on the condition that this is happening under a corporation's jurisdiction. well, where does that jurisdiction end? I mean, we see where that ends with Shadowrun. It ends wherever the corporation's lawyers decide it's going to end, wherever they can decide that's going to happen, which leads to the creation of the corporate court, where the court is going to oversee all these things because these different corporate entities are about the only ones able to police one another. The different nations have basically given up their ability to deal with any of these corporations. I mean, especially when you have them developing their own special forces and military personnel, like the legendary Renraku Red Samurai and their ninja forces, and then Saterkrupp munitions. I mean, they develop their own armaments, ammunitions, heavy industries, drilling, mining, energy, vehicle manufacturing. They own BMW. That's how owning BMW is how they got their spot on the corporate council, because BMW was one of the corporations that founded the corporate council. So I mean, it's there's so much that ties into it, and my brain can get to be a bit of a tangly web with these kind of things, but I absolutely enjoy crawling through it all. But that really is the thing of it right there. It's the lore, it's all of the background details and the like that allow you to tell so many interesting stories that really makes this game hit home. A lot of the rules surrounding it have a lot of unnecessary complications to it, or too many extra things that go with it. Don't mind having a little bit of risk. I mean, if you're creating a powerful focus that has some powerful magic packed into it, you're creating some uber magic edge for yourself, then yeah, having a bit of risk with that makes sense. But man, the amount of time and karma that can be burned just in artificing alone, just in trying to create preparations and the like, that's just, and the fact that preparations are not even all that guaranteed to work that great for you, limited in hours by their potency and that effectiveness right there. I mean, that really messes with a whole lot. You can't really plan around that very well. The only way to really plan around it well is to have somebody else do it for you, and that seems like an unfortunate waste, and an area where Shadowrun unfortunately limits its players. And then you have other things that are some odd limits, like, okay, makes sense that a person only has a certain amount of control over their firearm in combat. Limits the firearm acts at, it provides its own limit. Everything provides limits, like throughout the different magic tests and the like for artificing. You have limits there that are imposed by different magic ratings and skill sets and the like. How much oomph you're packing into the mana that you're throwing into a particular item. Firearms and weapons do the same thing. They have limits based on their relative amounts of accuracy, and those limits, determine whether or not you're able to succeed at certain tests, and certain weapons will not be successful at different weapon skill tests at all, which makes a certain amount of sense. You're not going to use a semi-automatic pistol to do long-range sniper dueling. No, you're going to need high-powered sniper rifles for that, but at the same time, it just kind of feels a little bit odd that a person's skill doesn't factor in quite as much. But then again, one of the major detriments limiting me here and kind of slowing me down quite a bit is that I haven't gotten to run or play this a whole hell of a lot in my lifetime so far. Certainly it is a fascinating setting, and getting into it has been fun, and that's where doing this series has been really beneficial for me, is I'm getting a more in-depth view on the rules and how everything works. But just stepping back and looking at it, it's like, I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't like getting Pathfinder and D&D in their Shadowrun, but there's something to be said for streamlining certain things. Don't want to make it so simple that everything gets to be samey over and over and over again, where there's only one major mechanical benefit or a main mechanical route that you want to go every single time. But at the same time, Shadowrun definitely has its own share of noob traps and the like, and very confusing rules and book layout. I mean, the book layout is still a number one complaint of mine. It just is not helpful at all, and the wording, oh my god, the wording on some things is just so inherently confusing. It's downright damn near painful at times. But I still love it. I still love it. It's still so great. I mean, you're not going to be taking on armies, but damn, you are definitely going to be messing with armies at some point. But that's the whole idea with these kind of clandestine organizations and groups. This is exactly what you're doing. You're flitting in between the lines there. You're within the shadows. You're not strictly legal, but neither are you necessarily illegal in what you're doing because, well, you're not leaving the evidence to get caught. And if you are, well, shit, you're toast. But then again, that's why Mr. Johnson hires you. Plausible deniability. You're just some random assets that got bought up, used, and expended. I mean, if you failed, that sucks, but at least by you failing, it's not like Renraku's Red Samurai got caught failing. It's a great setting. I love it. Not a fan of the rules, but still, this is, overall, I'd say if you're gonna pick a game up, you could do worse than to pick up 5th edition Shadowrun. I don't know how 6th edition is. I've read, the internet being what it is, I've read some reviews that say, this improves upon everything. This is incredible. It's fixed forever. And, oh my god, this is the worst, most awful, god-awful pile of shit ever. Who would do such a thing? And who knows? Maybe it lands somewhere in the middle for you. Certainly edition wars are like that. I remember 4th edition. 4th edition was pretty damn awful for D&D. Pretty damn awful. But I like 5th edition. 3rd edition was great, and certainly I enjoy Pathfinder. Edition wars. At the end of the day, the important thing is that you're having fun. I may not like 4th edition, but if you did, fantastic. I may not enjoy the rules with Shadowrun, as particularly 5th edition Shadowrun, but if you did, that's fantastic. I love that. I'm happy for you. Genuinely. No sarcasm, no talking out the side of my mouth or anything like that. It's all on the level. I'm glad that you have had fun, and I hope that this series is helping you to understand things a little bit more and helping you have a little bit more fun with Shadowrun as well. Certainly, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. We are going to wrap things up here. Remember, if you're new here to the channel, then go on down there to hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. With all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, and I'm going to go because I hear my children destroying things. Thank you all so much for your time. You all have yourselves a good night. Do you want to say hi? Come over and say hi. Yeah, hello.
Hey.
Little cheese ball.